What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another update. Before we get into the specifics, let's talk about Paul O'Keefe and what he said. He said that Ange Postecoglou wants a couple of new faces in within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Coaching staff will meet tomorrow, which is today, and players in for testing Saturday, and then training does start on Sunday. So we're about to get into it once again. A new season, new beginnings, new hopes. Nazar Kinsella says that Tottenham are keen to sign a forward as their next big transfer after securing the Archie Gray signature. So apparently he wants a couple of new faces in the next 2-3 weeks. I'm sure he wants that.
Easier said than done, I think it's fair to say, especially knowing how Tottenham do their business. So look, I'd love for that to happen. To be fair, the Archie Gray deal was done pretty quickly once we were linked with him and once we wanted to hijack the deal. So maybe those deals are already in place and it's all about pushing the button. But let's see if we can get some done before the pre-season tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Desiree Doue now, because we all got pretty excited yesterday when the ITKs were coming out and Paul O'Keefe and Fabrizio Romano linked us to him. But here comes Ali Gold in true Ali Gold fashion, and he says any chance of Desiree Doue will be highly competitive, as Bayern and PSG are also interested. However, Tottenham do have a strong relationship with Rennes, having loaned them Joe Rodon and Jed Spence in the past. Paul O'Keefe says there is a chance that Tottenham move for both Doue and Neto this summer.
There's a chance for anything, I would say, but I don't know how likely it is. I'd love that to happen. But in terms of what Ali Gold is saying, it doesn't surprise me, given his talent, given how he's making waves in Ligue 1 at the moment. You look at Bayern and PSG, obviously Bayern are going in a new direction, aren't they, under Vincent Kompany. They're open to selling the likes of Sane, Gnabry, and potentially Coman, which doesn't even leave that many winger options left. So there is kind of a spot.
Plus they brought in Elise. They've just brought in Elise.
Elise's come through. Obviously they've got Musiala. They still have options, but obviously they're going in a new direction with a younger, fresher approach. So maybe Doue fits that approach. Obviously PSG have just lost Mbappe. They do have quite a lot of talent in their front line, but when the bright lights of Paris, especially for any young French player come calling, it's hard to turn them down. But you know, we've been battling with some big clubs recently for some young players. You look at Dragoshin, who rejected Bayern Munich to come to Tottenham. Bergvall rejected Barcelona to come to Tottenham. So I wouldn't completely count it out that Doue looks at the Tottenham project and looks at the youngsters that we're giving chances to. He will just see that we signed Bergvall and we signed Archie Gray, and we're planning on putting him in the first team. And obviously, I think with our current wing options, I definitely think he'll fancy his chances of getting a lot of game time at Tottenham as well. And I do think it could be a good place for him to develop, especially with our project. So as much as it will be competitive, I think if we can agree a deal with Rennes, I think there's every chance we can still get him.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I wholeheartedly agree in what you're saying, that Spurs could be a really good place for his development. I think many players are looking at Spurs now, with Ange Postecoglou potentially going to trusting in the youth in the coming seasons. Then they are going to look at it as a very attractive proposition. I think we've seen that already with certain youngsters coming into the club and the profile of players which Spurs are bringing in at the moment. I think they'll look at that and be like, look, this is a really attractive proposition at the age of 18, 19. Like I said, for Archie Gray, you know, you can spend the next 10 years at Tottenham and still go to one of these super clubs at the height of your career and make a big name for yourself over there, if you do, you know, make a big name for yourself here whilst you're developing at Tottenham. So I think it's a very attractive proposition. Let's talk about Eberechi Eze. Darmiseth on Last Word on Spurs says that a deal for Eze is not down the line with anyone. It appears that at the moment it's a pretty open race, but there is no smoke without fire, and there seems to be a lot of traction when you're talking about Eze and Tottenham. We haven't heard much about it over the past week or so, but I do think like once England are out of the Euros, whenever that may be, then this one will obviously gain more traction.
As you said, you know, he's away at the Euros. I'm sure he's concentrated on that. It's hard to do deals with players away on international duty. Obviously, the talk has hotted up with some other options with Tottenham, with, as you say, Neto's come back into the frame. Doue seems to be the player with a lot of interest, but I wouldn't rule out Eze just yet. He's a player who could make a big difference. He's a bit of a statement signing as well. And I think Tottenham are looking to do that in the front line, as much as obviously players like Gray and Doue are great to get in. I also think Tottenham are looking to make some big transfers. I think that's been mooted by a few sources. So just because we're making these kind of signings, I still think there's some room for some big signings as well, and definitely Eze fits that category. So I wouldn't rule this one out just yet.
Jacob Ramsey, Darmiseth as well on Last Word on Spurs, saying a deal for Jacob Ramsey is not off the table. Tottenham are still very much interested in him Look, I like Ramsey and I like him as a player, but I feel like with the players that we are looking to bring in, the players that we have brought in Archie Gray, I'm not sure if this one's going to get over the line.
I don't see. I'm not sure where I see Ramsey fitting in. Is he a backup to Maddison? Is he a left winger? Is he a number 8? If he's a backup to Maddison, is he the kind of player we want backup to Maddison? I'm not 100% sure on that. If he's a number 8, we just got Gray in. We've got Sarr. We've got Bentancur. If we see him as like a versatile player who can play on the left wing as well, I mean, I don't know if he's a winger in an Ange system, and he's going to command a fairly big outlay, 40 million. I would have only gone for Ramsey if Villa were kind of going. If Villa were struggling with PSR and were going for a cut price deal, I probably wouldn't have spent more than between 25 and 30 million, to be honest. They're talking about 40 million now because Villa have sold some players and they're not struggling so much with the PSR. I don't see a massive need for Ramsey, to be honest. But I do think he's a good player. I'm not going to complain if we sign him, but I wouldn't commit a big outlay to him, in my opinion.
Let's talk about outgoings now, and the same old story is starting to appear, this time with Emerson Royal. Nazar Kinsella says that AC Milan are interested in Emerson Royal, but Tottenham are unwilling to accept the cut price deal for the defender. They had hoped to sign the Brazilian for around 10 million, but Spurs are not actively pushing Emerson out and would happily keep him unless a suitor comes in with a higher offer. Daniel Longo says that there were contacts also during the day between Milan and Tottenham for Emerson. Spurs are not moving from the request of 20 million. There is still some distance between the clubs.
I mean, 10 million is a bit of a joke. Let's be honest. I know Emerson is not the best fit for Spurs, and I know he's got his problems, but he's not a £10 million player. He's definitely more worth much more than that. So that is a derisory bid. It's a Levy-esque bid, as they say. I think I'd argue. So I don't think we've heard the last of this one. I think right now, we've heard last week that there was big communications between the club after, we're looking to agree a deal. I think at the moment this is a bit of posturing from Milan. I don't think they ever expected a 10 million bid to be accepted. Let's be honest, that's obviously a very, very low bid. I do expect Spurs to meet them in the middle. I don't think 20 million is a completely unreasonable ask, but as I've always said, I think a bid of bit under 20 million, maybe with a few add-ons as well. I think this deal should still be done. I mean, if Milan are stubborn on a bid around 10 million, then we will have to move on.
It's just classic though, isn't it? Like, you hear for weeks that Spurs and Milan so close in their valuation, so close in negotiations, and then suddenly you just hear Milan, they only want to spend 10 million. Daniel Levy ain't giving anyone anything, no cut price deals for anything. I mean, we've seen this story before, haven't we?
I don't think. I think if the reports are to be believed, I think we're not doing anything wrong, to be honest.
Let's talk about some academy players just before we finish. Will Lancashire. Alistair Gold says that there have been inquiries aplenty from elsewhere about Will Lancashire, but question marks remain over whether he must remain at Tottenham for the next campaign to ensure he is considered club trained and homegrown for the seasons ahead. Because we did sign him, I think it was off Sheffield United or Middlesbrough, one of these teams 2 years ago. He's only been at the club for 2 consecutive seasons now. So I believe, from my understanding, he needs to be here for 3 years consecutively to be considered as club trained. So maybe it is worth keeping him.
So why does a loan deal affect that if he goes on loan to an English club?
Because he won't be at Spurs. He'll be on loan.
Yeah, but he's still a Spurs player.
Yeah, I don't think that makes this. I don't think that's the same. I think he needs to be available for Tottenham for 3 years in a row.
So why did Skip? Why is he homegrown?
Because he was there for ages before the loan spells.
But he went on loan at what age? Oh, you saying because Lancashire signed at what age? 17.
2 years ago.
And how old is he now?
19.
So he signed at 17, and he's 19 now.
The difference is that Skip was never at any other club before Tottenham.
Right.
He spent his whole youth at Tottenham. Lancashire was a player that we bought.
So a loan deal makes a difference. I thought a loan deal only makes a difference if it's outside of England or something like that, which I think was a problem with Pat Matassar, because he was he's from a non-EU nation, which caused complications. I thought that was the problem. But look, if Lancashire needs to stay here to become homegrown, maybe it's worth it just to keep him, just in case we need him in the future. For though, actually, I think it's probably more important for his development he goes out on loan, to be honest, rather than worrying about homegrown status. I wouldn't want to stagnate his development for the sake of him becoming a homegrown player.
What do you think, though, with Lancashire, if we do consider to keep him? Does that mean he comes into the first team, or does he spend another year in the under-21s? We know he looks a bit too good for the under-21s now. So does he come into the first team?
I think another year in the under-21s won't help him.
Yeah.
He's clearly smashed out of the park last season. He got 32 goals last season. So he needs to try another level. And that's what I'm saying. Either we put him in the first team or we send him out alone. I don't think another year in the under-21s will help him.
And with Lancashire, how does that affect the Troy Parrott thing? If we're who would you basically rather have in the first team next year, Troy Parrott or Will Lancashire?
I think Parrott's proved. Obviously, he's probably more capable of this level right now than Lancashire. But if a push came to shove, I would probably rather sell Parrott and give Lancashire an opportunity, just because we can get some money for Parrott. He's proven he can do well in the Eredivisie, and Lancashire obviously scored loads of goals, and it'll be interesting to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. If you're telling me based on what we better off purely on next season, better off having Parrott or Lancashire, I'm probably going to put my money in the Parrott basket. But if I'm looking at the long term, it's probably better to give Lancashire an opportunity.
And also, like, if we do sell Parrott and bring in Lancashire, then that gives us problems with the club trained numbers again, because Lancashire won't be considered as club trained.
Correct.
So that's another thing to consider. But anyway, let's talk about Jamie Donley. Some interesting clubs are very keen on taking him, including Luton Town and Oxford United. And I think a loan to Luton under that manager with that style of play that they deploy, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic. Did Oxford got promoted as well? But Luton obviously will go back to the Championship as probably... I know they're not like a legacy club like a Southampton or a West Brom, and you could argue they don't go straight back to the Championship as favourites to get promoted.
No, but they'll back themselves.
Yeah, given how they played in the Premier League and how they put up a good fight to stay up. I know they're losing Ross Barkley, but they'll fancy themselves having a good crack of at least getting back to the playoffs.
So is he going to go there as the Ross Barkley replacement in the Championship?
I don't think so. Just because Barkley played more deeper and double pivot, I think Donley will be more in a front three. I would assume, more attacking player. But it'll be really interesting to see what Rob Edwards can do with him. And given the football and their play on the front foot and the attacking nature of their play, I think Donley would really benefit from a loan spell with someone like Luton. So that'd be a brilliant move if we can go there.
I think Rob Edwards would be a brilliant manager for him, for his development over the next year. I really rate him as a manager. And last but not least, Mikey Moore. Alistair Gold says that Mikey Moore is expected to be heavily involved in pre-season. Dortmund is sniffing around the player situation, but Moore is happy at Spurs, and Ange Postecoglou has plenty of belief in him. And I, for one, am very excited to see him with his heavy involvement in pre-season.
Yeah, if that's to be believed, that's really exciting news, because obviously we've heard Gray and Bergvall going to be involved, and we're not 100% sure yet on Mikey Moore what kind of where he's at in terms of in the first team. Is he going to get opportunities? Is he a player that we really believe is ready to contribute now, or is he still in development stage? But hearing that he's going to be heavily involved in the pre-season, that tells me that we really believe he actually can contribute sooner rather than later, and that's really encouraging.
Absolutely. So that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.